Hi, welcome to Chapter 1 Installation, Configuration and Architecture of Cognos 10 BI. In this section, we are going to learn how to install Cognos 10 BI in 3 simple steps. Step 1. Open IBM website and locate the installer. Step 2. Read important information. Step 3. Log in and download the installer. So first of all, we'll open a new Internet Explorer window, and in the address bar, we'll type www.ibm.com/developerworks. DeveloperWorks is IBM's professional network for the developer community. In this area, they also provide software downloads for evaluation purpose. We'll click on the evaluation software from top options, and underneath, we'll choose Information Management as the category. Once you click on it, you can see a list of products available to download for evaluation purpose. On the top, you can see Cognos Business Intelligence. That's the one we are interested in. So click on that. As you can read here, it's an evaluation copy of Cognos 10. You can also find features and benefits, system requirements, pricing and support information on this. Take your time to go through terms and conditions, system requirement, and other important information. Once you are happy to download the product, you go back and click on the download button. At this stage, it will ask you to log in with your IBM ID and password. If you don't have one, you can also register. Once you log in, you will be able to download the Cognos 10 BI installer, which will look something like this. It's a folder structure with one installation.exe file. In next step, we'll see how to use these files to install Cognos BI on your machine. Section 1.2 Preparing Server for Installation. Now as we have got Cognos BI installer, in this video we will see how to prepare the machine for installing it. We will start with making sure that we have got the latest version of Java installed on our machine. For that, go to www.java.com and install the latest version of Java, which is a free download. Once we have done that, we'll go to Windows Explorer and right-click on Computer or My Computer and go in the Properties. We'll click on the Advanced System Settings and we can see this Environment Variables button under the Advanced tab. This section allows us to define the environment variable. Go through the system variables and double-click on JRE_home. Make sure that JRE_home points to the path where you have installed the latest version of Java. If you cannot find the system variable, you can also click on the New button and define one. Click on OK to go back. Now we will either disable the firewall or allow communication through port 9300. For that, go to Start, Control Panel and System and Security. Click on Windows Firewall. On the left hand side, you can see the option to turn Windows Firewall on or off. You can use this to either turn off the firewall. If you don't want to do that, click on the Advanced Settings and right click on Inbound Rule. Define a new rule. Choose Port, TCP/IP and type in 9300. Choose to allow the connection. Click on Next. Give a name to the rule and click on Finish button. So we have just created a rule to allow inbound connection through 9300. Do the same thing with outbound rule. So create a new rule to allow outbound communication through port 9300. You have to repeat this step for all the ports from 9300 to 9310, or you can disable the firewall completely. This way we have allowed communication through the port which is used by Cognos for communication. Now we will go back to the installer for Cognos 10 BI Developer Edition 30-day license version. Right-click on the installer.exe file and run it as administrator. This is a normal wizard-driven installer. Make sure that you go through the license agreement and click on Next. Choose the installation folder. In this step, you will choose the set of ports. You should be choosing 9300 to 9310. You can either provide a password for administrator login or leave it as blank. Finally, click on the Install button to finish the installation. It will take some time to install. So this will install the server, content store, and framework manager on your machine. This is called standalone installation because all the components are installed on one machine. You can also have distributed installation, where different components are installed on different machines. We'll cover that in the next section where we'll see the architecture of Cognos. Thank you. Section 3. Introduction to Components and Architecture of Cognos BI. Now as we have installed Cognos BI, let us go through the different components and architecture of Cognos. As you can see in this diagram, there is a multi-tier architecture that BI is made of. For description purposes, it can be separated into 3 tiers: web server, applications, and data. The main component or heart of the system is application tier. This application tier contains one or more Cognos BI servers. The BI servers run requests such as reports, analysis, queries that are forwarded by the gateway. BI server also renders the Cognos connection and Metric Studio interfaces. So any report that you run will be actually executed on application tier by the BI server. This tier also contains a dispatcher that operates the services and routes requests. It also contains Content Manager service that manages the BI information. Underneath you can see tier 3 that is called data tier. This data tier contains a content store, some data sources, and metric store. Any installation has one and only one content store. It stores the unique metadata that is required for the product to operate, which is report specification, all published models and packages, all connection information, and scheduling and bursting information. For content store, we can use any commercial relational database server like Oracle, DB2, or SQL Server. Or we can also host it using IBM's own Cognos Content Database, which is an instance of Apache Derby database, which can be optionally installed. We have already installed it as part of section 2. The query databases that you see next to content store are the actual reporting query databases. So they can be any database that store the data on which you want to create reports. The third component you see in this tier is authentication source. We can use any third-party authentication source or LDAP server, which stores the information about different users and user groups, and it is used for authentication purpose. Now let us look at its interfaces. IBM Cognos BI is configured using Cognos configuration. It is a Windows-based component that we'll see in the next section. Apart from that, there are web-based and window-based components or user interfaces. The web-based interfaces are Cognos Connection, Cognos Administration, Query Studio, Report Studio, Analysis Studio, Event Studio, Metric Studio, and Business Insight. The most commonly used Windows-based interfaces are Framework Manager and Cognos BI for Microsoft Office. All the communication between these interfaces and the application service are done via tier 1, that is web server. The web server will host one or more gateways. We'll use multiple gateways when we want to load balance the web communication. All these components can be installed on network separately and can be configured to work with each other. That is called distributed installation. However, in our case, we have installed all the components on one machine, and that is called standalone installation. In next section, we'll see how to configure these components and start the services. Section 1.4 Cognos Configuration and Starting Services. So now we know about high-level architecture and components of Cognos BI. We also know that we have done standalone installation of the Developer Edition, which means the web services, web server, content store, and framework manager are all installed in one machine. Let us now see how to do one-time Cognos configuration and then start the services. For that, we'll first go to Windows Explorer and locate the Cognos installation place. As you can see, I've installed it on C drive program files IBM folder. Within the Cognos installation, you can find a subfolder called bin. Just open up the subfolder called bin and locate the file called cogconfigw.exe. Now we'll right click on this file and run it as administrator, which opens up Cognos configuration. As we can see, the Cognos configuration window is now opening. Please note that before starting the configuration and running the services, we need to make sure that the JRE home, that is Java installation, and firewall settings are done properly, and we have covered that earlier in this video series. So now we can see that Cognos configuration window has opened. The first thing we are going to do here is to make sure that Content Manager can connect to the Content Store database. In order to do this, we need to have the Content Store database service running. If you are using an external relational database as Content Store, for example SQL Server or DB2, you need to make sure that the service is running. In our case, we are going to use the IBM Cognos Content Database, and hence we'll start that service. Right-click on the Cognos Content Database under Environment tab and start the service. As you can see, it has generated cryptographic information and it has started the Cognos Content Database. At this stage, we can check Windows Services and look for the IBM Cognos Content Database. We can see that the service has started. Now we'll go back and check the Data Access Content Manager node. Go in Data Access tab under Content Manager, and if you don't see any Content Store entry, you need to right-click and add a resource. We can see that there is already an entry for Content Store. So we'll right-click and test the connection. We can see that the connection is now successful. Now we'll check the environment settings for the BI service. Click on the Environment tab and check the group properties on right-hand side. As you can see, the gateway URI and dispatcher URI are referring to localhost. We need to change that and put the PC name or IP address for the current machine. The next thing we need to do is click on the node called Cognos under Cryptography and change the password. Please make sure that you note down this password for future use. Now we can click on the Save button to save this configuration. At this stage, Cognos configuration will perform certain tests, and it will also generate the cryptographic information using the password key that we have provided. Once everything is successfully saved, we can right-click on the Cognos BI Developer Edition under IBM Cognos Services and test the service. And that's it. Once the test is successful, we are ready to start the service. For that, simply click on the green play button from top. Now we'll go back to the Windows Services Management window and we'll check the status for BI Developer Edition service. As we can see, the service has started. Congratulations, you have just started your Cognos server on the standalone installation. Section 1.5 Connection Portal. First of all, we need to make a note of the gateway URI. Copy that link in the Internet Explorer address bar and try accessing this website. You should see a website like this. If you don't see it and instead you get a website not found or page not found error, then you need to start the web services. You have option to either use any standard web service like IIS or Apache server. In that case, you need to configure the web service using Cognos documentation. However, you can also use Cognos 10's default Tomcat web server. If the service has not started, you can open command prompt and go to Cognos installation location, Tomcat folder, and within there is a subfolder called bin. As you can see here, I am in the command prompt in the Tomcat bin directory. From here, I can type startup.bat and execute the file which will start the Tomcat web service. Once the service has started, you should be able to see the connection portal like this. On this screen, you can enter user ID and password. This will be the administrator user ID and password that you had given during the installation. I had left my password as blank, so I'll just type administrator and hit OK. And now I have successfully logged on to the connection portal. Cognos Connection Portal looks just like a website. It's a web portal that can be used across the entire network to provide a single access point to all reporting data available through Cognos. We can run existing reports, analysis, and queries from here and use them like any other website without installing anything on the machine. We can also launch Report Studio, Analysis Studio, Query, and Metric Studios from here. That too are zero installation. That means anyone can develop or access reports or analysis from anywhere in the network without installing the components. If we have appropriate permissions assigned to our account when we log on, We can also perform the administration tasks like package and folder management, user management, schedule management, data source management, etc. For the details of how to use Cognos Connection Portal, please go through the user guide. However, we'll see the basics here. As you can see, there are two tabs by default. One is called Public Folder and the other is called My Folder. Public folder is a public area that anyone can see equally. My folder is your own personal area which is connected to your logon. So anything you save in my folder will only be visible to yourself. Please take your time to go through the user guide and different options for Connection Portal. In this section, we'll quickly go through the personalization options. So on the top right hand corner, you can see My Area options. Click on that and go to My Preferences. In this area, you can set some general preferences for Connection Portal. For example, how many entries you want to see in the list view, or whether you want to see any separator between the entries. I will change the default from 15 to 30, and I'll change from no separator to alternating background. I'll also change the style from corporate to contemporary. When I hit OK, I can see that the skin has changed. If I go back to Site Preferences, I can see some more options. For example, setting the time zone or my default language. Cognos is a multilingual product, so users from different geographical areas can set different languages as their default language. On the second tab, I can also see different capabilities and groups and roles assigned to me. On the third tab, I can see what are the portal tabs that are visible to me, and by default they are Public Folders and My Folder. Thank you. Hi, welcome to Chapter 2, Simple to Advanced List Reports. In this section, we are going to create a simple customer list report as you can see on the screen with certain columns. So first of all, we'll open Internet Explorer and log on to our Cognos Connection Portal. It will ask me for the username and password. I will log in with my administrator login, which doesn't have any password. I'll click on OK. Now we can see that on the top right corner there is a launch button. So click on the launch button and open Report Studio. At this point, it will prompt you to select a data package. This is a package that was published from Framework Model or Framework Manager. I'll choose my classic model to work with Report Studio. Now you can see that Report Studio is launching and it has given me two options, Create New or Open Existing. I'll choose Create New. Now we have various templates to choose from, list, cross-tab, chart, map, etc. We'll use the list template. As you can see, Report Studio is now trying to load the package. It is actually creating a file called runtime model or RTM file. It can take few minutes for the first time. Once it is loaded, you can see all query subjects and query items on the left-hand side. Now I can see customers, employees, offices, all these query subjects and corresponding query items loaded on the left-hand side. I can also see that on the right-hand side there is a list template that is already there and I can drag the items onto it. I've already dragged customer name and customer number, and I have dragged first name and last name. If I want to choose multiple items, I can also hold Control key and choose address line 1, 2, city, state, postal code, etc. and drag them all together on the list. Now we can also double click on the page header and change it to Customer List Report. Now I'm ready to validate the report. There is a button called Validate Report on the toolbar. When you click on it, it says that the report specification is valid. And now we are happy to save the report. We'll save it in my folder and we'll call it 2.1 Simple List Report. Now everything is done, so we are ready to run the play button. Now everything is done, so we are ready to run the report. We can see the output. It is Customer List Report with the selected columns and the data is coming through. Now let's see how this actually works. Let's go in the Query Explorer and examine the queries. You can see that there is query 1, which is actually pulling data for the list. If you choose Generated SQL from Properties on the left, it actually shows you the SQL that is used by Cognos to fire on database. As you can see, it's a standard SQL that you can copy and run directly off the database to validate the data. So in this section, we have seen how to create a simple list report using Report Studio in 3 simple steps. Now we'll proceed on to add some advanced feature to this list. Thank you. Section 2. Add data formatting, grouping, and sorting. In this section, we will see how to add data formatting, grouping, and sorting features to the list report. Firstly, let us drag 2 more items from the model on our report. We will expand the order details query subject and drag product code, price each, and quantity ordered fields on the list. Now we run the report to see how it looks. We can notice some data formatting issues here. First, price each field does not always have 2 decimals. For example, for the full numbers like 153, we would like to show 2 zeros after the decimal points, but we don't see them at the moment. Secondly, price each column should have a currency symbol. And last one is we would like to group the rows by customer number and sort records by contact first name. So let us go back to Report Studio. Click on the price each column and open data format from properties on the left. We will choose format type as currency and currency as USD. For numbers of decimal points, we will choose 2. Click OK to close this dialog. Now, for grouping, we will select the customer number column and hit the Group Ungroup button from top. We can see that the column is now grouped and there is an icon visible in that column for that. As we wouldn't want the customer name to repeat multiple times, we can change the group span for the column. Select Customer Name column and change the group span from Properties to Customer Number. This means every time a customer number appears, only that time the customer name will show. Do the same for first name and last name. We will also delete the address columns as we don't need them anymore. Finally, we will define the sorting by selecting first name and choosing the sort ascending options from the sort menu on top. Now we are ready to save this report and run it in HTML by clicking the blue play button. As we can see now, the list report is grouped by customer number. The customer name only appears once for each customer number. The price each column is displayed with 2 decimal points just as we would like to see them, and we can see a US dollar sign in front of the numbers. The customer names only appear once per customer number because of the group span that we have defined. We can also do page down and see that the report is now sorted by customer first name. This is how we have successfully added data formatting, grouping, and sorting to the list report. In next section, we will add some conditional styles to this list. Section 3. In this section, we will add some simple and advanced conditional styles to this list report. Let us have another look at the report output. We can see that each customer has ordered many products. Let us see if we can highlight the orders where product price is more than $100 by showing the price in bold. Also, we will highlight the orders where price is more than $100 and quantity is more than 50 by changing the background color. For that, let us go back to Report Studio. Right-click on Price each column and from the Style menu, choose Conditional Style. We'll click on the Create New Conditional Style button and base it on Price each column. We'll call it as Big Product. Now, we will add a new value of 100. This creates two conditions for us, one for less than or equal to 100 and the other for greater than 100. For the greater than 100 one, click on the Edit Style button and change the font to bold. Click OK to close this dialog box. Now we will create an advanced conditional style. So once again, click on the new Advanced Conditional Style and call it Big Order 2. Add a new condition and write an expression by dragging the price each and quantity ordered columns as we can see here. We have changed the expression to check whether price is greater than 100 and quantity is greater than 50. For this condition, we will edit the style and select background color as lime. Click OK to close the dialog boxes. And now we are ready to save this report as 2.3 Simple and Advanced Conditional Style. Run the report to see the effect. As we can see here, the orders where product prices are big, the price is shown in bold. And where the orders are big too, the background is highlighted in lime color. So we have seen how to add simple conditional styles, which involves checking for numeric ranges or string values, and also advanced conditional styles, where we can check for multiple conditions or complex conditions. In the next section, we will add page break to this report. Thank you. Section 4. Add page breaks by creating sections. Now, we will create sections to show one list per customer and then also add page breaks to this report. First of all, select customer number column, which is already grouped. Click on the section button from top, which will create a new section based on customer number. Now click on the unlock button and drag customer first name and customer last name items from left on the list report next to customer number. Now lock the report again and then delete the columns that are no more required in the list. At this stage, if we run the report, it will look like this. As we can see, sections are being created for each customer, and there is a small list report within each section. Now go back to Report Studio and open Page Explorer and drag a new page set from left. Now we'll click on the page set and change its query to Query 1. Please note that Query 1 is the one that is being used by our list report in the section. Now drag the report page, that is page 1, under this page set. Next, we will define the grouping for page set. For that, select the page set, click on Grouping and Sorting from the properties. Drag customer number to group like this. Basically, it means Cognos will create a set of pages, and the set or number of pages will be driven by customer number. Click OK to close this dialog. And now we are ready to save the report and give it a run. As we can see, the report now shows one customer per page. If we want to print these pages, we can choose to view PDF from the top right corner. So now in this PDF, you can see that there's one page per customer, and each page has a customer name on top and then a small list report mentioning all the products the customer has ordered. And this PDF is ready for printing and distributing as well. In the next and final section, we will see how this report works. Section 5. Examine the query subject and generated SQL. Welcome to the final section of this chapter. We will now look at the final report and examine how it works. First of all, to recap what we have done, we simply dragged the required items from model onto the list when we started. Then we quickly and easily added grouping and sorting and also defined the data formatting. We created sections and page breaks and added conditional styles to this report. Let us now see how Cognos pulls the data from database. First, we'll click on any column and then from the properties pane, choose the list. We can see that the query that drives this list is called Query 1. Now let us open Query Explorer and click on Query 1. On left, we can see the area for generated query. Click on this button and we can see the actual SQL being generated and used by Cognos. We can see that Cognos has created inner joins between customers, orders, and order details tables. These relationships and joins are driven from the relationships that we defined in the Framework Manager. Cognos fires this query on database and pulls the data. Then it formats the results and applies the styles as we defined in the report. Finally, it produces an HTML, PDF, or Excel output. Cognos can also provide outputs in CSV and XML format. It is a good practice to name the query properly. So we will now change the name of this query to main report query. This automatically gets updated in all the places where this query has been used in the report. So congratulations, now you know how to create a simple list report and then quickly add features to achieve some advanced functionalities. In the next chapter, we will see how to add filters, prompts, and calculations to this list. Thank you. Section 3.1 Add custom calculation to list. Let us look at the output of our report once again. We can now see that each section for a customer shows the product they ordered, quantity of the product, and price per product. In this section, we'll add a custom calculation to compute and display the order value by multiplying the quantity by price. We'll also create a new column called Customer Full Name by concatenating the first and last name, and we'll display the customer number in brackets. So let us go back to Report Studio. Click on the Toolbox tab and drag a new query calculation on the list next to the quantity ordered, like this. Give it a name as order value. In the Data Expression dialog, click on the Data Items tab. This tab displays the items which are already in the query and are used in the report. Drag the price and quantity items and add multiplication sign between them. So basically we are defining this new calculation as a multiplication of price and quantity, and we called it order value. Click on OK, and now we can see that our new calculated item is added to the list. Now click on the Unlock button and once again drag a new query calculation. This time place it in the list header like this. Call it Customer Full Name. For the expression, drag first name, last name, and customer number, and modify the expression like this. Basically, we are concatenating both the strings and adding a space between them. Also, at the end, we are appending the customer number, and we are putting it between the brackets. Click OK. Now we can delete the customer number, first name, and last name items as we do not need them anymore on the report header. Validate the report. And once the validation is successful, we are ready to save this report as 3.1 custom calculations and give it a run. We can see that both the calculations we created are working fine. The order value is being calculated fine as a multiplication of price and quantity, and we can see order name in the header displayed with number in bracket. In the expression editor, fourth tab is called Function. This tab shows you all the functions and operations that you can use in your custom calculation. There are numerous date, time, string, number, and OLAP related functions. When you click on any of them, you also get a short description about the syntax and usage of the function on the right hand side. So please take your time to go through these and practice some more calculations on your own. Thank you. Section 3.2 Filter data using detailed filters. Now we have a functioning report that shows the information about each product ordered by all the customers, and it also shows their price, quantity, and order value. However, you would not always want to see all the hundreds or thousands of records. Instead, you would want to restrict your search to certain criteria. In this section, we will add a detailed filter to only show the record where order value is more than $2,000. So let's go back to Report Studio and click on Query Explorer and select the main report query. You will remember that this is the query subject that drives the list report, and we renamed this in Chapter 2. Now from the toolbox, drag a new filter in the Detailed Filters area. This will open a dialog where we specify the filter criteria. Let us drag our calculated data item, which is called order value, onto the data expression and specify the condition as greater than 2000. Please remember that this dialog box is similar to the one used to define data expression. Hence, you will have access to all the functions and operators to define a complex and more sophisticated filter. Click OK. Validate the report, and once the report validates fine, we are ready to save it as 3.2. Now let us give it a run. As we can see here, the report now shows only those records where the product order value is more than $2,000. So we have successfully added a detailed filter to this report. Thank you. Section 3.3, Parameterize the filter and add prompt. In this section, we will parameterize the filter that we have just added in the report, and we will also add a prompt to enable user selection. Let us go back to the query from Query Explorer. Double-click on the filter that we have just added in the last section. Instead of hard-coding the value to 2000, we will now define a parameter like this. By putting the word order threshold between question marks, we have just created a parameter called order threshold. Now let us go to the Page Explorer. Click on the prompt page icon. Drag a new prompt page from left onto this area. This creates a new prompt page. Now double-click on the prompt page. This is the area where we'll put all the prompts to allow users to select values before running the report. From the toolbox, drag Text Box Prompt on the report towards the bottom. For the parameter, we will use the one that we have already defined in the filter. So pick up Order Threshold from the list and click on Finish button. Now validate the report. During validation, it will ask for a test value for this order threshold parameter. Type in a value. Once the validation is successful, save the report as 3.3, parameterize the filter and add prompt. And now we are ready to give it a run. Let us click on the Run button. As we can see, we are now presented with the prompt page that we just created. It shows the text box prompt. We can type in any value that we want to use as a threshold for the orders now. Let us try putting 5000 and click on the Finish button. As we can see, the report is now showing only those orders whose value exceeds 5000. Congratulations! You have just achieved your first parameter-driven filtering for a runtime selection of filter criteria. In the next section, we will add another prompt, which is a further refined kind of prompt. When you validate a report, Cognos will ask you to provide test values for all the required or all the mandatory prompts. When you run the report next time from Report Studio, the same values will appear to be remembered. But don't worry, this is only for your Report Studio session. When any business user will run the report from Connection Portal, they will not see these values by default. However, if you wish, you can explicitly define the default value for prompt in Report Studio. Thank you. Section 3.4, Add Query-Driven Value Prompt. Now we will look at adding another prompt to this report, which is a sort of advanced control and is driven by a query of its own. We will add a value prompt or a drop-down control, as usually called in the most programming languages. First of all, we'll define a filter like we did in the last section for use with the prompt. So let us click on the main report query and add a filter from left. Define the filter condition as customer name in customer by pulling the customer name from data items. Please note that the in operator allows us to provide multiple values, and this is similar to the in operator in standard SQL syntax. Now we will go to the prompt page and drag a value prompt from the toolbox on the prompt page. For the parameter name, choose the one that we have just created from the list, that is customer. On the next step, it is asking us whether we would like to create a query to drive this prompt. Check this box and give it a name as customer list. For the values to use, it has already selected customer number because that is how we have defined the filter in the query. Click on Finish button. If we have a quick peep in the Query Explorer, we can see that a new query has been created and it is called pCustomer, and we know that it is going to be used to populate the value prompt. Now validate the report. Like before, it is asking me to provide some test value for these parameters of prompt. Let us give any test value and click OK. Once the validation is successful, we are ready to save this report as 3.4. Let us now run the report to see what this prompt does. We can now see that there is a list box which is already populated with all the customer numbers. Please note that in order to populate this control, Cognos has already run a query which is called pCustomer in our report. That query pulls all the customer numbers and then those numbers are populated in this prompt and are displayed here for the user selection. Now we select the required customer numbers and we'll also type in the order threshold as 2000. When we run this report, we can see that the report now shows only the selected customers and the orders of value over 2000. So we have successfully added a prompt which is populated beforehand with its own query, and it allows users to select a customer or multiple customers. This is the most commonly used prompt control. You can use it to display list of countries, list of products, areas, customers, dates, etc. from the database for user selection. Did you know that you can change the value prompt UI from properties and make it look like a drop-down box, a list box, or radio button set? When the parameter is of multi-select type, or if you enable multi-selection from the prompt properties, then the radio button set automatically changes to checkboxes. And that gives you 4 types of controls within one powerful control. Please take your time and explore the different properties for this prompt, and also practice select and search prompt, date prompt, and interval prompts, as these are the most commonly used in relational reporting. Section 3.5, Changing prompt display value and doing other refinements to the prompt page. In last video, we added a value prompt that shows a list of customer numbers. However, it will not be user-friendly to display only customer numbers. It will be great if we can also display customer names, while the filter still works on the number being unique key. Let us see how to achieve that and also do some quick tidy up of the prompt page. First of all, let us go to the main report query that drives our list. Select the customer full name calculation that we created to concatenate the customer first name and last name, and it also shows customer number in the bracket. Select this item and also select the first name and last name columns by holding down the Control key from your keyboard. Now press Ctrl C. This copies the data item on the clipboard. Now let us go to the query that drives the prompt page. We know that it is called pCustomer. Open it and paste the calculation and first and last name by doing Ctrl V. Now go to the prompt page and select the value prompt. From the properties on left, select display value and change it to customer full name. Basically, we are configuring the prompt here such that it will display the customer names in the list. However, based on the user selection, it will still pass on only the customer numbers back in the filter because the use value is still customer number. That should work fine because our filter is actually based on customer number, and customer number is a unique identifier and it is the primary key for customer table in our database. Now let us quickly drag a table from Toolbox and paste it in here. Select 2 rows and 2 columns and hit OK. Now move the prompts in this table. Also drag text items in the report from left from the toolbox and enter text like this. I'm actually copying the text from a text file that I've already prepared to save our time. Also, double-click on the page header and type appropriate page header text. Finally, let us delete the next and back buttons from the footer because we do not need them. Hit the unlock button from top and drag a text item on the finish button. Let us call it run instead of finish. So we are ready to validate and save this report. Let's click on the validate button. And once the validation is successful, let's run the report. We can now see that our report looks very nice and clean. The prompt page has appropriate header. It also has instructions for user selection. The list box now shows customer names along with the customer number in bracket. Let us now select some customers and also put 2000 as the order value threshold and click on the finish button. When we do this, we know that report will now filter on the selected customer numbers, and it will also show the orders that cross the order value threshold that we have given. So overall, in chapter 2 and 3, we have made a mini reporting application that does record filtering, calculation, sorting, grouping, page break, conditional highlighting, etc. And we did this very quickly and efficiently using Cognos 10 Report Studio controls and features. Did you know that Cognos not only has out-of-box functionality to produce the report output in PDF, HTML, Excel, CSV, and XML format, but it also has report scheduling and emailing capabilities. Please refer to the Cognos Connection Portal user guide to learn to use these emailing and scheduling features. Thank you. Chapter 4, Sample to Advanced Cross-Tab Report. In this chapter, we will learn how to create cross-tab reports, which are also traditionally called matrix reports, using Report Studio. We will start simple and then see some advanced features related to this topic. Please note that when you are working against a dimensional data source like TM1 cube or SSAS cube, you will be most of the time creating cross-tab reports because they go naturally well with the dimensional structures. However, in our sample, we are not using any dimensional or dimensionally modeled package. We will use our classic model, which is a simple relational package, but we can still make use of the cross-tab reporting layout and features. Section 4.1, Cross-tab Report to show orders against cities and products. In the first section of this chapter, we will see how to quickly create a cross-tab report to show order quantity totals by product and cities. This sort of report can help us identify the demand trend for products and by cities, and can help us taking manufacturing and promotional decisions. So let us go back to our Report Studio and start a new report from scratch. This time, we will select cross-tab type in the dialog box. From the Order Details query subject, drag Quantity Ordered in the intersection area, which makes it the default measure for the cross-tab. Now expand Customers and drag City on the columns area like this. Also expand Products and drag Product Name on the rows. Please note that we see repetition of the items on rows and columns, that is, 2 city columns and 2 product names. This is just an illustration to show how the report will look like. It projects that multiple cities will appear as columns and all the products will appear as rows on the report. If you want, you can turn off the repetition from View menu and Visual Aids section. Now, let us define the sorting. For that, first click on the columns, and from Properties, open Sorting. Drag Quantity Ordered on right hand side and change the sorting order to descending. This means the cities will be displayed in the descending orders of the total from left to right, and with the most demanding cities on the left. Same way, open Sorting for the rows and base it on Quantity Ordered in the descending order. Let us now set the page header as order quantities by cities and product and save this report as 4.1. Now we are ready to validate this report. And once the validation is successful, let us give it a run. We can see that this report is very efficient layout to represent numerical information around 2 or more dimensions. From this result, we can quickly see that customers from Madrid have placed the highest quantity of orders so far, followed by San Rafael, NYC, Auckland, and so on. Probably, this means more cross-selling opportunities in the cities, or it points out the need to do more marketing and deploy more sales strategies in the cities towards the right. Same way, we can see the highest sold product as 1992 Ferrari being the top amongst the rows. This way, we have quickly created a cross-tab report, which is also called matrix report. Cognos automatically performs the default aggregation of the measures and performs a group by operation on the rows and columns. In this case, order quantities from all the thousands of orders have been added up and grouped by their products and customer cities. If we examine the SQL query for the query subject, this logic will reflect, and we don't have to specifically define any sort of grouping like we had to do in the list reports. In the coming section, we will do further refinement to this crosstab. Thank you. Section 4.2 Add crosstab totals, zero suppression, and range prompt. Let us start by adding the row and column summaries to display totals. This is very easy. Just click on the quantity ordered in the crosstab intersection and hit the Summarize button. Select Total, and you will see that totals have been added to the end of rows and columns. Now let us go to the query that drives this crosstab from Query Explorer to add the filter. If you are building a report against dimensional source like cube, you would never ever add a filter to the report. Instead, you will add slicer to the right bottom area here. However, we are working against a relational source, and hence we will drag a filter just like we did for the list report. So let us drag a new filter from Toolbox. Open Orders Query Subject and drag Order Date item. Let us define the filter as order date between start and end. By putting start and end between question marks, we have defined these two parameters. Now go to the prompt page, add a new prompt page, and drag a date prompt onto it. For the parameter, select start from the list of the parameters and hit finish button. Similarly, drag another date prompt and link it to the end parameter and hit finish button. Basically, we have added two date prompts here, and each of them drives one of the parameters used for the filter. Finally, we will do zero suppression for this report. When you work off a dimensional source, your report will show all the products and all the cities even though there are no records or even though there are no orders for them. This will also happen with relational source if the model has been designed with outer joins. In such cases, we would want to suppress the rows and columns with no data or zero numbers. And we can do this easily using the zero suppression. For that, let's go back to the report page and click on the three dots on the crosstab corner, which selects the whole crosstab. Now from Properties, open Suppression dialog. Set suppression for rows and columns like this and hit OK. Now we are ready to save this report and validate it. During the validation, it will ask for test values for those two parameters, so we can provide any date. Hit OK, and after the validation is successful, we are ready to run the report. Let's run this report for 1st January 2004 to 31st January 2004. We can see that we received orders from 7 cities during this period. Highest order quantity from Madrid, lowest from London. If we click on the bottom page link to go to the last page, We can see in the summary that the total order quantity for this period is 3245. We will also have the list of products going across the report on left, starting from the highest and lowest. So we have successfully added totals or summaries for the rows and columns to this report and added a filter that controls the start and end date for the order date. In the next section, we will see how to add additional levels and measures by nesting rows and columns. Thank you. 4.3. Add additional levels and measures by nesting rows or columns. In this section, we'll see how to display multiple measures and levels by nesting items on the rows and columns. So firstly, let us see how to nest multiple measures on the columns. Assume that we are interested in not only the order quantity, but also price of each product. But if we drag price each onto the intersection, we can see that it replaces the previous measure, which was order quantity. In this case, we have to select both the items by holding down Ctrl key and drag them just under the city column on the columns area like this. Also on the rows, say we would like to split the data by order status. So we will drag status from orders query subject and drop it on the rows just next to the product like this. This creates nested level for the rows showing statuses for each product. Now we will quickly add a filter to show only those orders whose status is not shipped. For that, we'll go to the Query Explorer and drag a new filter. Define the filter as status not equal to shipped by dragging status from the data items. This means this report will only show quantities and prices for the orders that are not shipped, and we will see the spread over different statuses. Finally, let us tidy up the summary by dragging both quantity and price item again under the total on the columns. Now click on the total and change the aggregation method to aggregate. When we change it to aggregate, it applies whatever is the aggregate function for each of the measures. So for price each, we will change the aggregate function to average, because it doesn't make sense to add up the prices for each order. Instead, we should show the average price for all the orders. Last thing we will do on this page is to change the page title to Exception Report, because we are now showing only exceptional orders which are not shipped. Now let us validate the report. And once the validation is successful, save this report. Now we are ready to give it a run. As we can see, the report now shows only those order quantities for which the order status is not shipped. We can see the spread of such exceptional orders over different statuses which can be cancelled or on hold. And we also see price each column nested under the city columns. So for each city, we can see what was the total order quantity and what was the average price for the product. In the next section, we will see something called discontinuous crosstab. 4.4 Discontinuous crosstab. With the Cognos crosstab reports, may it be in Report Studio or Analysis Studio, it is possible to place a dimension on rows or columns next to a totally unrelated dimension. The report will still show the numbers fine as long as the measures in the intersection and the dimension on the other axis are related. This is called discontinuous crosstab. In this section, we will see how it looks and how to achieve it. So let us go back to our report in Report Studio. As our report is an exceptions report showing the orders that are not shipped, it will be nice to know in which month those orders were expected to be delivered. So let us expand orders query subject from the model and drag the required date on crosstab next to city like this. As we would be interested in knowing the quantity totals and not the price, we can drag the quantity column under required date. Or we can also check the cross-tab default measure. Let us click on the three dots in cross-tab corner which selects the whole cross-tab. From Properties, check what the default measure is. If the default measure is not quantity ordered, then set it to quantity ordered, like this. Finally, we click on the required date column and select the Sort Ascending from toolbar. Basically, what we have done here is we have pulled the required date on the columns. We have defined the sorting as ascending. Because the default measure of the crosstab is quantity ordered, we know that this crosstab will now show quantity ordered for the required dates. Now we are ready to save the report and give it a run. Let us choose start date as 1st of January 2004 and end date as 31st December 2004 and run the report. You can see all the exceptions that occurred in year 2004 by products and cities. If we scroll to the right, we can also see these new columns showing the dates when those orders were expected. Let us click on the bottom link to go to the last page and scroll down to the summary. From the summary totals, we can see that there were totally 605 order product quantities expected on 1st July 2004, but they were either cancelled or not shipped for any other reason. Now that gives something to the management to look into. Of course, we can also see which products and cities these exceptions occurred the most. So we have successfully added one more dimension to this report, making it discontinuous crosstab and still showing the measures properly. In the next section, we will see how to override contents of certain cells. Thank you. 4.5 Override cell content. In the last section, we will see how to override the contents of certain cells in our crosstab. In our discontinuous crosstab, we are presently showing quantity and price each measures. Quantity ordered is our default measure, so whenever we do not specify any measure by nesting it, the default it shows is the quantity. Let us see if we can override these contents for required date column and instead show a text item. So let us go back to our report studio and click on the intersection cells for the required date column. From the properties on left, set Define Contents property to Yes. Click on the Unlock button from Toolbar, and from the toolbox, drag a new text item into the cell like this. Enter a text as high, low, and hit OK. As we can see, the contents of these cells now look different from the other cells in the crosstab. Now again select this text item and from the properties change the source type to report expression. Basically, instead of hard-coding a text, we are going to define a report expression. Click on the expression button and define it like this. What we are doing here is we are defining a data expression to check the quantity order. And if the quantity is more than 25, we will show text as high. Otherwise, we'll show the text as low. Hit OK. At this stage, we can also create a conditional style for this text to show it in bold or red when it is high. That will be similar to defining conditional style for the list report that we have seen in previous chapters. Please do this yourself as an exercise. For now, I will save it and validate the report. Once the validation is successful, we'll run the report. For the same date range. As we can see, the quantity and prices are shown fine for the city columns, whereas for the required date columns, now we see a text as either high or low depending on whether the exception order quantity is more than 25 or not. This is a very powerful feature now. You can also drag an image and change the image based on a condition to display traffic lights, or you can also display the arrows going up or down, or you can drag an HTML item and define the HTML code to be a hyperlink, which allows user to go to different pages based on the order status of product. The possibilities here are unlimited. I hope we have now touched upon the most useful features and techniques so far, including list and cross-tab reports. We have seen various things like sorting, grouping, conditional styles, filtering data, adding prompts. We have also seen zero suppression, overriding the cell contents, and discontinuous cross-tab, etc. Please do practice these on your own and try some exercises using our sample database and package provided along with these videos. Thank you. Did you know? When you build a crosstab against a dimensional data source which already has the hierarchies defined, you can very easily enable drill up and drill down in the report. For that, you only need to go to the data menu of Report Studio and open drill behavior, and then tick the Allow Drill Up and Drill Down button. This will enable all the hierarchical members in your report to show as hyperlink. When users click on any of the members, report will automatically drill down to show the children. For example, when users click on a country, it will expand into cities. And similarly, users can right-click and choose to drill up. Thank you. Chapter 5. Graphs for Visual Presentation. In this chapter, we will add graphs or charts to our report for visual representation of the data. We will also go through different types and properties and options for graphs. Section 5.1 creates simple chart showing sales over countries and product lines. So let us go in Report Studio and click on the New Report button from the toolbar. Choose Chart as the report type and 3D Stacked from the bar chart. Now, expand Customers Query Subject from the model and drag Country on Categories like this. This will create categories or bars for all the countries going along y-axis. Now, for sales, we will create a calculation. So from the toolbox on left, drag a new query calculation into default measure like this. Give it a name as sales. And for data expression, define it as price each into quantity ordered by dragging price each and quantity ordered from model like this. Hit OK. For different colors or series within each bar, we would drag product line from product query subject and put it under series like this. And now we will only make one change to the chart properties, that is to the size. So click anywhere in the white space of the chart which selects a whole chart and shows its properties. Scroll down in the properties window and open the size and overflow dialog and define size as 600 pixels by 800 pixels. Hit OK. We can do more changes to the properties of this chart as required, but for the time being, we will save this report and see how it looks. Before running, let us also validate the report. And once the validation is successful, we are ready to give it a run. Let us run this report, and we can see that because we haven't added any date range at the moment, it is rendering a chart based on the entire order's data. We can see that it has beautifully generated a bar chart showing the sales over different countries. The bars are color-coded or stacked based on the product lines. If you click on PDF or Excel icon from the top right option, this chart is exported fine into PDF or Excel without any issue. So in less than 3 minutes, we have generated a bar chart using Report Studio. In the next section, we will do further refinements to this chart and add extra measures to it. Thank you. Section 5.2 Projecting multiple measures on the chart and other refinements. Cognos allows you to project multiple measures or data on the same chart using different presentations. For example, we can project one series as column chart and another as line chart, as you can see on the screen. This type of chart is called combinational chart. Let us see how to achieve that. And we will also see how to change data format and legend title of any series. Let us start with our chart report that shows sales over countries. These are stacked columns with each color representing a product line, and together they add up to the sales total for corresponding country. We have another interesting measure or numerical information in our database, that is customer credit limit. Let us expand our customer's query subject and we find credit limit. This is a rather interesting information, and if we can project a collective credit limit for existing customers over the countries, we can find where our customers have relatively more appetite or scope for buying products. So let us drag credit limit onto our chart under series like this. This will create a new series for credit limit over countries. We would like that to be a line chart, so select the series and change its chart type to line from properties. Also, the scale or range of credit limits may be different from the actual sales, and we are only interested in the relative comparison. So we do not have to project both on same axis and same scale. Instead, we will scroll down and set the axis alignment to Y2, which means credit limit will be projected at a different scale against a separate axis. We would also like to display the number for the credit limit chart nodes, so set values to show and value location as outside top. This will show the actual number for the aggregated credit limit next to the chart nodes. Instead of showing the whole number, we can change it to show in millions by changing the scale. For that, select credit limit and from properties open data format. Select format type as number and scale as -6. We will also set decimal places as 2. So our credit limit totals will be shown in millions scaled by -6, and we'll see decimal places up to 2 points. To reflect this title in the legend, we will also change the text source type to text and set it as credit limit in millions. Now we are ready to save and validate this report. Please note that there are numerous properties for each series, each axis, each category, and whole chart itself. You can change background color, axis titles, series titles, category titles, and even the color palettes. You can change all these properties to meet your requirements, so please take your time and play around them. Once the validation is successful, we are ready to give it a run. We can see that our graph has successfully projected two measures now. The columns show total sales over countries, and different color bands show the performance over product lines. And we can also see a relative comparison of aggregated credit limits of the customers in different countries, that our sales is relatively well over the credit limits in Spain, whereas for France, USA, and UK, they are relatively in line with the credit limit. In Italy, we can try to sell more as the sales is relatively low compared to the customer credit limit or their buying power. This way, we can project multiple measures on same chart for relative comparison. Thank you. Section 5.3, Nested Items in Chart and some more properties. In this video, we will see how to nest cities under countries to create grouped bars. It is called as nesting of additional level or item into categories. We will also touch upon some more chart properties that we can change to meet our requirements. So let us go back to our report in the Post Studio. We will open Customer Query Subject and drag City under Countries in the Categories area like this. Please note that placing cities just under countries will create a nested level for the bars. So now we know that our chart will show bars per city, and they will be grouped by the countries. Now let us also change some axis titles. For that, open the axis titles area on the chart by clicking on plus button. And now let us select the bottommost one, which is for Y2. From properties on left, set the default title to no. And now double click on it and define the title as credit limit in million. Hit OK. Now let us see what can be done to the legend. For that, click on the legend and check its properties. We can see option to show or hide the legend title. let us hide it because we can always put an appropriate title on the page header itself. Under Show Legend Values, we have option to show the values as first, last, maximum or minimum values. At the moment, we don't need to show any of those. We can also change the position from right to left or bottom. Let us try putting it on bottom because that will give us more horizontal space on the page for the chart. If we click and select the whole chart, we can see more properties that allow us to change the color palette for the bars, background color of the chart, and some other cosmetic properties. Lastly, we add filter on the countries so that users can choose the required countries when running this report. For that, we have option to go in the Query Explorer and drag a new filter like we have done in previous videos. However, let me show you another way of adding filters. Simply click on the chart to select it and then click on Filters button from the toolbar and choose to edit the filters. Now in the Detailed Filters tab, click on Add button and choose Data Item as Country. Hit OK, and Report Studio now shows us all the country names in a list that we can choose from and add in our filter. Because we don't want to hard-code the country name, and instead we want to keep this as a dynamic filter and allow user selection, we'll tick on the box on the right top corner called as Prompt for Values. For the parameter name, we can either leave it as it is, or we can give our own parameter name like pCountry. Click OK to close all the dialogues. Now we are ready to save it as 5.3 and validate the report. When we validate it, we are prompted for the test value and we can select any country and click OK. Once the validation is successful, we can run it by clicking on the Run button. We can now see that we are presented with a default prompt page that Cognos has generated for us. This is a feature of Cognos that when we define any prompt parameter for use in our report, even if we do not create any prompt page, Cognos will automatically generate a default prompt page for us. Let us select a couple of countries from here and hit OK. And we can see that we have a beautiful chart showing bars for each cities within our selected countries. These bars are grouped by the countries and we can also see the country name. The top axis title is now changed to what we have defined, and our legend has now moved to the bottom, giving us more horizontal space for the chart. Thus, we have successfully created nested level in our chart and also changed some more properties. In the next section, we will see how to make chart a part of a list to show it on each row. Thank you. Section 5.4, Chart inside a list and master detailed relationship. In this video, we will create a simple list report to show product information and then add microchart inside the list to show sales performance of these products. So let us start a new list report and open Product Query Subject from left and select Product Code, Name, Scale, Vendor, and By Price columns and drag them on the report. Now from the toolbar, drag a new chart on the list report and drag it to create a new column like this. Select the chart type as microchart and you can see chart repeats on each row of the list. Now, if you click on the chart, you can see from properties that it is connected to a new query called Query2, which is different from the query that drives the list report. So from the toolbox, let us drag a new query calculation and place it into default measure area of the chart. Call it as sales. Define it as quantity ordered into price each by dragging those items from order details query subject. This means that our chart will project the sales value. We would also like to see the sales trend over time. So we will drag order date and place it into categories like this. Finally, we don't want same chart data to show on all rows. Instead, we would like to see the chart for corresponding product, depending on whichever row it is sitting on. So we need to create a filter in the chart data, and that filter should be based on product. And then we will link it to the row item. For that, select the chart and click on Filters button from toolbar. Select Advanced Filter this time and define it as product code equals product, where product is placed between two question marks, creating a new prompt parameter. Click OK to close this dialog. Now we need to link the product filter to corresponding row from the list. For that, click on the master detail relationship from chart properties and define a new link between product code from query 1 and product parameter from query 2, as you can see here. Please remember that product parameter of query 2 is being used to filter out the data of the chart. Hence, by defining this master detail relationship, we are making the chart filter data on whatever product code belongs to the row of the list report. So now we are almost ready to run this report. Just one last bit that we need to do is to change the column title for the chart. So click on the column title and from properties, change the text to sales trend. Now let us validate the report, and once the validation is successful, save it as 5.4 and let's run the report. We can see that our report has now listed all the products with their names, scale, vendor, and by price. However, most importantly, it now shows sales trend in microcharts as the last column. This sort of microchart can be very useful for a bird eye view of how the product is performing over the period. Please remember that our chart is showing sales over order date, and it is being filtered on product code. However, product code filter is being driven by the master detail relationship, hence it is controlled by the row on which the chart is sitting. This way you have successfully created a nested chart inside a list. Thank you. Section 5.5. Enable advanced chart properties and create a 3D bubble chart showing 3 measures and 4 regions. In this video, we will see an example of a very powerful chart type called 3D bubble chart that allows us to project a lot of information in one go. We will build it to show comparison of average prices, total quantities ordered, and total sales between product lines. In this video, we are going to see a very important step to enable advanced chart features that come with version 10 of Cognos Report Studio. For that, click on Tools from the top menu of Report Studio and open Options. From the Advanced tab, untick the Use Legacy Chart Authoring option, which was ticked by default. Now click on the New button from Toolbar and select Chart Type Report. Now you will be presented with a very different layout of chart types to choose from. This is because we have now enabled the advanced authoring. Let us click on the Scatter Bubble chart and choose Bubble with 3D markers. Hit OK. Now from left, open Product Line Query Subject and drag Product Line into Series. This means our chart will create a bubble for each product line. For the placement of bubble over X-axis, we will drag Quantity Ordered measure from the Order Details Query Subject. For the placement of bubbles over Y-axis, let us drag Price Each measure and put it on the Y-axis. We also need to change the aggregation property for Price Each, so click on it and from the properties, change the aggregate function to average. Also change the roll-up aggregate to average. Finally, for the size of the bubble, drag a new query calculation from Toolbox into the bubble measure and call it as sales. Define this as quantity into price by dragging both the items from second tab of existing data items. Now click anywhere on the chart to select the whole chart and from properties open colored regions. Click on New button to add a new region. Call it as low price, low volume. Change the top and right positions to 50% and bottom and left to 0%, like this. We will keep the region fill color as brick red. Now add another region and call it high price, high volume. Change the region fill color to a greener shade and change the left bottom positions to 50% and top right positions to 100%. Hit OK to close it. And now we can see that our chart preview in Report Studio is updated with the colored regions that we have just defined. We are now ready to save this report and validate it. So let us save it as 5.5 and click on the Validate button. Once the validation is successful, let us run the report. We can see that it has generated a nice bubble chart based on the entire order's data. There are 4 regions created, and it is a good news that we don't have any product line falling in the bottom 50% region, which is marked in brick red color. There is also a big fat bubble for classic car, and if we hover mouse on it, it shows the total quantity, average price, and total sales for classic car. There is also vintage car as a second best product line that we can see in the green region for high price, high volume. The location of the other smaller bubbles show that they are not very different in average pricing, but the quantity ordered is very low and hence the sales volume is also low. This way, we can very efficiently project multiple information to the audience using bubble chart, and we can utilize the new features of Cognos 10 like showing colored regions. Thank you. (6.1) Drill through from a list report to another list report. You might have commonly seen in the reports or websites, when you are looking at a table or list of data, there are certain hyperlinks provided to you to click on. When you click on them, they either show further details of the item that you have clicked on, or they show another view of the information related to what you have clicked on. For example, on screen, you can see that a report is showing orders data. If the user then wants to find more information about any of these products ordered, they can click on a product code and it will open up a new window showing the details of that product. In terms of report design, this is called drill through. Cognos Report Studio provides you a quick and efficient way of setting up drill through between reports, which allows users to jump from one report to another and pass on certain data items or filtering criteria to relate them. In this chapter, we will see some examples of creating drill-through definition. In this video, we will create a drill-through from a simple list report showing order details to another list report showing product details. To start with, I have created a simple list report showing order number, product code, quantity, and price. I have also grouped the order number column. You have already seen how to create this sort of report in Chapter 2. We are going to use this report as a source report, so let us save it as 6.1.1 source report. Then I've got this another list report showing product details, that is product code, name, vendor, and description. If we examine the query from Query Explorer, we see that I have already created a detailed filter on product code, which is driven by a parameter called pcode. We have covered this in Chapter 3 that shows you how to create filters and parameters. This report is now saved as 6.1.2 target report. Now let us go back to our 6.1.1 source report, where we will create the drill through link. As we would like to pass the product code and show product details, let us create the link on product code itself to make it obvious. So click on product code column and hit the drill through definitions button from the toolbar. Now click on new drill through button and then open the target report dialog like this. Select 6.1.2 target report and hit open button. Now to configure the parameters, click on edit button from the parameters area. We can now see that Report Studio is examining the target report to find out the parameters that it can accept. And now our parameter pcode has been listed here. As we would like to pass the product code from our current report to the target report, select method type as pass data item, and from value column choose product code. And hit OK to close this dialog. So basically we have just defined a drill through such that it will call report 6.1.2 and it will pass the product code from this report to 6.1.2, which will then filter the data using this product code. Now we can change some other properties like what we would like to do when users click on the link. So choose Run the report from Action. We can also choose whether the target report should run in HTML, PDF or Excel, etc. For now, let us leave that as default. We will also take the option to open the target report in New Window. Let us click on OK to close this dialog box and save the report. Now validate it. And once the validation is successful, let us give it a run. We can now see that our first report has run successfully and it is showing order details. The product codes in each row now appear as hyperlinks. If we click on any of them, it opens up a new window or a new tab and runs the target report 6.1.2. And we can see that this report has successfully filtered on the same product code. And now it is showing us further product details like name, description, and vendor of the product. This way, we have created a drill-through link from a list report to another list report and configured it to pass the data item value as parameter for filtering. Thank you. Passing multiple parameters in drill-through from a chart to a list. You must have seen or heard of dashboard reports, or simply dashboards. Usually these are very high-level graphical reports that give a bird's-eye view of what is happening in all the areas. The audience of such reports are top management and stakeholders, and what they would like to then do is, if they see any unusual movement or status on the dashboard, then click on it and look at the details of what is happening. To achieve such functionality, we need to be able to provide a drill-through from a graphical report or chart object to a detailed report by passing multiple parameters. In this video, we will see how to achieve that. To begin with, let us open the chart report we created in our video 5.1 simple chart showing sales over countries. You remember that this is a graphical report showing a chart of sales over multiple countries. We will reuse this in our video, so save it as 6.2.1 source report. Now open another existing list report, which is 6.1.1 source report. As we are going to again reuse this in our video, we will save it as 6.2.2 target report. Let us also do some modification to this report. Let's drag product line from products query subject onto this report, and also drag country from customers query subject onto the report. Now open the underlying query from Query Explorer, and we will quickly create two filters on product line and country. To do it quickly, we can simply drag product line from data items area into filters area and define the filter as product line equals p product line, where p product line is a parameter, and create another filter as country equals p country. So now our report is ready to show order details, and it can be filtered on product line and country. So let us save this report, and let's open our source report, which is the chart report. We have called it as 6.2.1 source report. Now select the chart and click on the drill through button from Toolbox. Click on the new button, and for target report, select 6.2.2. Let us edit the parameters, and we can see that Report Studio has populated the parameter names that our target report is ready to accept. So choose to pass data items, product line, and country. Click OK to close this dialog, and also take the option to open the target report in new window and hit OK to close this dialog too. So we have now created a drill through from this chart to our order details list report. Let us save and validate this report, and once the validation is successful, let's give it a run. We can see our familiar chart report showing sales over countries using stacked bars, which are colored as per the product line. When we hover mouse on any of them, we can see the pointer changes to a hand pointer, which means it is a clickable object. Also, we see a tooltip coming up, which shows us the country name, product line, and sales value. Now let's click on Australia Vintage Cars. And we can see that as per our drill through configuration, Cognos now opens a new window and runs report 6.2.2 for these parameters. And it is now showing us order details for Australia vintage car product line. This way, we can pass multiple parameters to the drill through report. In our case, we are passing product line and country as the parameters to drill through, which then performs the filtering. Please also note that you can have further logic and filters in the drill through report. For example, we can also call exceptions report that only shows the failed or cancelled orders. Thank you. 6.3 Drill up and drill down in dimensional models. Firstly, let us understand what dimensional model is. Until now, we have worked against a purely relational model and relational database where the data is stored in tables and tables are joined together by inner or outer joins. However, there is another scheme of storing data called dimensional or multidimensional. As you can see on the screen, dimensional model has multiple dimensions like company, products, time, geography, etc. Within each dimension, there are levels. For example, in time dimensions, we have year, month, days. Or within company dimension, we have branch, department, and employees. All these dimensions are connected to the collection of numerical data called measures. They are the factual information like sales, quantity, balance sheet amount, etc. Though in this video series we are not covering the dimensional model in detail, we have to touch upon Cognos' native feature of working against dimensional model. In fact, the Cognos modeling tool called Framework Manager allows you to define dimensional structure over a relational database schema, and such model is called Dimensionally Modeled Relational or DMR model. For your practice purpose, I have created a simple DMR model over the classic model. You can see its design on screen. In Framework Manager tool, I have created two dimensions. First one is called Customer Geography, and it is made of country, city, and customer. Underneath, it is using our customers table. The second dimension is called Products, and it has two levels, product line and products. It uses the products table from our database. And finally, I have created a measure dimension which pulls quantity and price from order details table and then calculates sales by multiplying them. We have published a model called DMR Classic Model for these dimensions and measures. So let us now create a cross-tab report using this DMR model and see how Cognos' drill up and drill down work. So we go in Report Studio and start a new cross-tab report. To use the DMR package, let us go in File menu and click on Report Packages. From the list, select DMR Classic Model and hit OK. We can see that Report Studio is now loading the package definition, and the two dimensions and measures are now available in the pane on left-hand side. Now let us expand Customer Geography dimension, and we can see various levels. Drag country level on the rows of crosstab like this. Similarly, expand the products dimension and drag product line on columns of the crosstab. And finally, let us expand the measures and pull sales on the crosstab intersection. So basically, Report Studio will calculate sales figures and group them by customer country and product lines to display in this matrix. At this stage, we can run the report, but we are actually interested in seeing the native drill up and drill down feature. For that, click on the data menu from top and select drill behavior. From report output drill capabilities, enable allow drill up and drill down. We can see that there is also option to selectively disable the drill up and drill down for certain dimensions, but we do not need that for now. Click OK to close this dialog. Let us save it as 6.3 native drill up and drill down and validate the report. Once the validation is successful, we are ready to give it a run. We can see that Cognos is now showing us a matrix or cross-tab report output. We are familiar with this type of output as we have learned about them in previous videos. We can see sales figures over different countries and product lines. However, we also see that the country names and product lines now look like hyperlink. So let's click on Australia, and that changes the rows, and we see cities within Australia on the rows now. If we click further on to Melbourne, we can see the customer called Australian Characters Company. Similarly, if we click on classic cars from the columns, we can see the products and actual sales figures. This way, this report allows us to very comfortably browse the data and drill down into required areas to see more details. We can also right-click and choose to drill up. So we have successfully created a report against a dimensional package and then enabled drill up and drill down, which are Cognos' native features. And with this functionality, we can concentrate on any area and examine the data in detail. Thank you. Six point four. By default, Cognos Report Viewer has buttons on top right corner to view the report in PDF or Excel. However, it is tucked away along with the other buttons into a drop-down like this. When your report is made public and there are going to be hundreds of users, not everyone will know about this option. Hence, it is often required that you provide more visible buttons to export the report into PDF or Excel. Let us see how we can achieve that using drill through to itself in this video. Let's open our report 6.1.1 source report and save it as 6.4 drill through to itself. Now from toolbar, drag a block onto the report like this. Now drag a table in this block and define it as 2 columns, 1 row. Turn off the maximum width option and enable show borders. Now from toolbar, drag a new text item into the table and type export to PDF. Now select this text item and click on drill through button from the toolbar. Hit new drill through definition button. And for the target report, select 6.4 report itself. So we are creating a drill through link to this report itself. Now this report doesn't have any prompt or parameters. If it had any, we could have simply defined the parameters to be passed across. However, the main step here is to change the format to PDF and tick Open in New Window option. Now click OK to close this dialog box, and this way we have defined a drill through from this text item and linked the report to itself. However, the report output format is going to be PDF. Now right-click on this text item and copy it and paste it in the next cell. Now double-click and change it to say Export to Excel 2002 and then edit its drill-through definition. For this one, we will set the format to Excel 2002. And remaining options will remain the same. So click OK to close this dialog box as well. Lastly, select the block and change its text alignment to right. Let us now save and validate this report. Once the report validation is successful, let's give it a run. We can see that this report has run fine in HTML or web format, and it is showing us orders data. If we click on Export to PDF option from top right, it opens a new window and then produces the same report in PDF format, which is good for printing, emailing, and saving locally. Similarly, if we click on Export to Excel, the same report will run in Excel format. This way, we can mimic the View in PDF or Excel options using drill-through links to the report itself. We can use the conditional styles to then hide the top links from PDF and Excel outputs, which we have learned about in Section 2, Conditional Styles. Thank you. Six point 5 Conditional drill-through definitions. It is often required that the drill-through links to different targets based on certain conditions. Though Report Studio allows you to define multiple drill-through links on the same text item, the users will then be given choice to select which target report they would like to go to. In this video, we will see how we can use conditional styles to mimic conditional drill-through to different targets. Let us once again open the existing report called 6.1.1 source report and save it as 6.5 conditional drill-through. Now in this report, we already have a drill-through defined on product code column. Let us select it and open the drill-through definitions to confirm that it goes to 6.1.2 target report. Now let's assume that we would like to have this drill link only when the quantity is less than 30. However, if the quantity is more than 30, we would like the drill-through to go to another report called order statuses. To achieve this, we will actually create two data items, each going to one target, and then show or hide them. So click on the unlock button from top and create a copy of product code in the same column by holding Ctrl key down and dragging the item. Now for the copy, edit the drill through definition and point it to the order statuses report. For that, open the drill through definitions and change the target report to 6.5.2 order statuses and map the parameter p code to product code and tick to open in new window and hit OK to close this dialog. So now we have got two product code items, each going to separate drill through targets. Now to show and hide them, let us create a conditional variable. So go in Conditional Explorer and drag a new string variable from Toolbox and define the condition as if quantity ordered is less than 30, then target 1, else target 2. In values side, add the possible values, that is target 1 and target 2. Now go back on the report page and select first product code item. From properties for the render variable, select the string variable that we have just created and choose to render for target 1. Similarly, for the second product code item, from properties, choose same render variable, but this time choose to render for target 2 condition. And finally, save this report and validate it. Now, let's run this report to see how it works. We can see that the report output looks just like before, showing orders data. Let us click on one product code whose quantity ordered is less than 30, and we can see that it runs 6.1.2 and shows the product details for this. And now, from our report output, let's click on another product code whose quantity ordered is more than 30, and we can see that it runs 6.5.2 instead, and it shows order statuses for this product. This way we have achieved conditional drill through using conditional style. We know that there are two different objects going to two different target reports. However, we do a show and hide based on our required condition, and we can achieve conditional drill through behavior. Thank you. 7.1. Use macro functions to make columns dynamic. The users would like to handpick the columns they want to see on the report. Hence, we are asked to create a report with dynamic columns capability. Let us look at the report on screen. It is showing customer names and certain attributes. Instead of making it always show address lines, phone, and email ID, we will see how to make dynamic column selection possible using Cognos macro. Please note that macros are basically certain predefined functions which are put between two hashes like this. These are evaluated first before the report is executed, and hence they are used to change the report items like data, filter, query, etc. at runtime. They can be used in Framework Model as well as in Report Studio to make changes to report definition at runtime. So let us start with a new list report and drag customer number and customer name on the report. So these are going to be our fixed columns, and they will always show on the report output. Now open the underlying query from Query Explorer and drag the other possible columns on the query like first name, last name, city, country, phone, postcode, etc. Please note that they are added to the query, but Cognos will not add them to the actual SQL unless they are actually used on the report. Now we will add a new data item and use macro in it. So drag a new data item and define it as hash prompt column 1 token hash. Prompt function is a macro function that allows us to pass parameter value. The parameter name is the first argument passed. So here in our case, col1 is the parameter name, and second argument is the type of value. It can be string, number, token, etc. Hit OK to close this dialog, and from properties rename it as column 1. Now let us make two more copies of this item like this. So we right click on the data item and then paste it again. Now let's open column 2 and change the parameter name to col2. And similarly for column 3, change the parameter name to col3. Next step is to pull these three dynamic data items on the report. So let's go back to our report page, and from Data Items tab, pull these three items on the report like this. The last part is to create prompts for each column parameter, such that based on what user selects, the corresponding data item name is passed in the parameter. So open Page Explorer and create a new prompt page, and drag a new value prompt on the prompt page. For the parameter, select col1, which is the parameter that drives column 1 data item, and hit Finish. Now select the prompt, and from Properties, open Static Choices. We have seen in one of our previous chapters that we can actually have a query that drives the values for prompt. However, in our case, we will define some static choices for this prompt. So click on Add button to define the first value. You see that Report Studio is now asking for use and display values. Please note that display value is what users will see on the value prompt, and they will select one of those. And use value is what is actually passed inside the parameter. In our case, we will pass a data item name to the prompt macro. So let us type query1.phone as the use value and phone number as display value. That means when users will select phone number, the actual parameter value passed will be query1.phone, and that will replace the data expression for column 1, and our column 1 will start showing phone numbers from the database. Similarly, let us add other pairs for the other data items, that is city, country, postal code, state, first name, last name, etc. I have already done that, so I'm just copying that prompt and putting it here to save our time. Hit OK to close it. So that's done for the first column. Now let us copy this prompt and paste it again. We want to use this copy to work for column 2. So change the parameter name from Properties to col2. And similarly, make third copy and attach it to parameter col3. So now we are ready. We have got prompts that will pass proper data item name based on what user selects. This data item name will go in the prompt macro, and macro will use it as token to replace the data item expression. Report Studio will then run the report and show us column 1, 2, and 3 based on the selection. Let us save this report as 7.1 and give it a run. On the prompt page, let us select city for first column, email for second, and phone for third column, and hit Finish button. And we can see that our report is now showing us the columns that we have selected in the specified order. This way, we have successfully achieved dynamic column selection using prompt macro to enable users to select what they would like to see on the report output. Thank you. Create email link using HTML item. Report Studio Toolbox has an interesting item called HTML item. When you add this to report, you can add your own HTML, JavaScript, or any other code which will be presented as it is on the output, and the browser should interpret and execute it. That gives us an unlimited power to add programming capabilities. Let us see a quick example of how we can use HTML items to create email link in the report. Start with a new list report and drag customer number, name, and email data items onto it. Now press the Unlock button from Toolbar, and then from the toolbox, drag a new HTML item in the email column just before the email data item like this. Now select this HTML, and from Properties, change the source type to Report Expression. For the expression, type as ahref equals mail2 plus query1.email plus the closing tag. So basically, we are trying to build a dynamic HTML item here, which is an email link, but the target email address will be driven by the email data item from the report. Hit OK to close, and then drag another HTML item and place it after the email data item like this. Now double-click on it and type \a tag, which is the closing tag of ahref. So essentially, this tag will close the email link tag. Now click OK to close this and save this report as 7.2, creating email link using HTML item. And now let's validate the report. Once the validation is successful, let us run it. And we can see that our report is now showing us all the customers with their numbers, name, and email IDs. And we can also see that the email ID now appear as hyperlinks. If we click on any email ID, then it creates a new email to that customer email ID. This way, we have successfully created an HTML item, which is essentially a mail to link, and the target email address is based on the data item from our report. Similarly, HTML item gives us unlimited opportunities to build dynamic codes, which will execute in the browser, which is most commonly Internet Explorer, when the report is run in web format. However, the limitation of this method is HTML items used in the report will not work in PDF or Excel formats. For such cases, we can use the hyperlink object from Report Studio Toolbox, which works okay in PDF and Excel as well. In the next video, we will see how to use hyperlink object and create a link to Google Map. Thank you. 7.3 Create link to Google Maps using hyperlink object. On screen, you can see output of our report 7.2. We would like to add address columns to this report and also create links to Google Maps using postal code. We would like the link to work in PDF and Excel formats. So let us go back to our report and save it as 7.3 Google Maps link using hyperlink object. Now lock the objects by using lock button from the toolbar and drag required address columns on the report. Next, from the toolbox, drag a new hyperlink object on the report to create a new column, and click on the column title and change the text to Show Me. Now click on the column and from Properties, change the URL source type to Report Expression. Now let's edit the report expression to construct appropriate link to Google Maps. So for the report expression, type https:/maps.google.co.uk/maps equals. So this is basically the forming part of Google Maps URI. To this part, we will add query1.postalcode and query1.country separated by comma. Now click on OK to close this dialog. Let us also change the text for this hyperlink to say maps. Now validate the report. And once the validation is successful, let us save the report and give it a run. As we would like to test that the report output and the hyperlinks work in PDF format, let us run this report in PDF. We can see that our report is now showing the address columns, and the last column is called Show Me, which has got links to Google Maps. Let's click on one of them and see whether that works. And we can see that our hyperlink has successfully opened Google Maps, and it is showing us the location based on the postal code and country. If you want, you can also add the address lines in the URL for more accurate results. Thank you. .4 JavaScript to manipulate value prompt. Just like we can add HTML items on the report, we can also add JavaScripts, which will execute on the client side after the web page loads. We can use this feature to manipulate Cognos prompts like selection of the value prompt. In this video, we will start with a report that shows order details by date, and there is a filter on order date driven by a parameter called ODate. We will see how to use JavaScript to select the latest order date in the value prompt. So let's go in Page Explorer and add a new prompt page. Drag a new value prompt, and for the parameter, select ODate, which is used to filter the order dates. In the next step, choose to create a new query which will drive the prompt values. Call it p_order_date and ensure that it is using the order date column. Hit Finish to close this. At this stage, we can run the report to test that the prompt values are populated fine, and we can see that the order dates are showing in the drop-down in ascending order. So let us go back and select the prompt. From Properties, open Sorting, and drag order date to sort list and change the order to descending. Hit OK. So now we know that the latest order date will be on the top of the list because the dates are sorted descending. So let's write a JavaScript to select the first date from the list, which is the latest available order date in database. For the JavaScript to manipulate this prompt, we have to first give it a name. So from the properties, scroll down and give this prompt a name as myList. Also, let us change the UI to list box. And now drag a new HTML item from Toolbox and put it next to the list box. Double-click on it to edit the HTML item and put this JavaScript in it. Basically, this JavaScript is checking the count of the values in the list box, which is called myList. And if there are one or more values, then it selects the first value, which is the latest date available in our database. You can download this script along with the samples from our website. Hit OK and save the report. Now let's give it a try. So we can see that when our prompt page loads, the JavaScript automatically selects the first entry from list box. So as a user, I just have to press Finish button, and I can see the orders data for the latest date available in database, which is 31st May 2005. This example is a very simple one to show you how JavaScripts can be used to manipulate the Cognos prompt controls. However, you can write more sophisticated scripts to do the prompt validation and perform more client-side operations like changing the size of window, displaying a message, or automatic submission of prompt values. In the next video, we will show you another example of how to show or hide certain prompts using JavaScript. Seven point five. JavaScript to show or hide prompt controls. In HTML language, there is a tag called span. As the name suggests, this tag allows us to define a span or area and give it a name. Using JavaScript, we can then manipulate a named span. For example, turn off the visibility and turning it back on. In this video, we will see how to use it to show or hide a prompt from prompt page. Because Cognos prompt pages are web pages anyway, we don't have to worry while using the HTML items and JavaScripts on prompt pages, as they will always work even if the final output format is PDF or Excel. We will use our report from previous video, 7.4, which shows order data, and the JavaScript selects latest date from the list box prompt. In this video, we will add radio buttons and perform show and hide on the list box. So let us open our report and save it as 7.5 JavaScript to show or hide objects. Now let's go to the prompt page, and firstly we will drag a new HTML item to display radio buttons. Drag it from Toolbox and place it before the list box. And now double click on it and define the HTML item as shown here. Basically, we are writing code to display two radio buttons. They will display two choices, latest date and select a date. Depending on which one user clicks, either hide prompt or show prompt function will be called. Hit OK to close it. And from properties window, add description as radio buttons so that it is easy to identify this HTML item. Next, we will define a span to include the list box prompt. For that, drag two HTML items and place them before and after the list box, like this. For the first one, define it as span ID equals A1. Hit OK and provide the description as span begin. And for the second one, just put span closing tag like this and describe it as span end. And finally, open the HTML item that is already holding our JavaScript. Let us add two more functions to this JavaScript called show prompt and hide prompt. You can download this script from our website along with the other report samples. Basically, these functions are turning off the visibility or turning them back on for span A1, which will in turn show or hide the list box prompt. Hit OK to close it. And now let's validate the report. And once the validation is successful, save the report as 7.5, and give it a run. We can see that our prompt page now shows us two radio buttons, which is generated by the first HTML item. If we select latest date option, the list box is hidden because the visibility of span is turned off. The list box parameter, however, will still work, and the other JavaScript has already selected the latest order date, so it will be fine. If user selects the second option, then list box appears again, and user can now change the order date. (8.1) Reusing report objects. Report Studio gives us facility to reuse objects from another report. This is different from simply copying objects from another report. It is called layout component reference, where Report Studio actually maintains the reference information, which not only allows us to reuse the objects, but also allows us to make any changes at one place and automatically see the change reflected at all the other places. Let us see what is this layout component reference and how it works. I have created this report called 8.1.1 standard components. For its header, I have created a table with logo, title text, and report execution date and time. I would like to use this header as standard header across all my reports. For that, I could either copy it and paste it in each report that I make. But it means in future, if I require to change the header, I will have to update each report separately. Instead, we will use the layout component reference. For that, we have to first give a name to this table. So select the table by clicking on the three dots in corner, and then from properties, give it a name as my standard header. Now we would also like to allow overriding the standard header text. So click on the unlock button from toolbar and select the header text. And from properties, give it a name as header text. Now let's save this report and see how it can be used in another report. So click on the new button and choose a new blank report. Let's create a new page header by clicking on the report page and choosing to create header. And from toolbox, drag a new layout component reference and drop it into the header. Now it is asking me whether I would like to use the component from this report or another report. Let's select another report and choose 8.1.1 standard components. And it is showing me the list of available components for reference. Let us select my standard header. And we can see that our table is now showing in this report, which is a standard header table. Because I would like to override the header text, let us select the component and from properties open overrides. We can see that header text is available for overriding. So select header text, click OK. And now we can drag a new text item from toolbox and drop it onto the header text. Let's type the text as 8.1.2 sample report, and we can see that the same font and same size is applied to this text item. Now we can save this report as 8.1.2 sample report. And let's go back to our original report and assume that we have to make some change to the header. If I want to delete the report execution time and I want to move the report execution date next to the logo like this, and let us save this report. If I now go back to the public folder and refresh the list, I can see 8.1.2 sample report. If I run this report, I can see the changes to header are automatically reflecting in 8.1.2 sample report. So the report execution time is now removed and report execution date is now showing next to the logo. This way I have made change only to the main report. It is automatically reflecting in all the reports where I have used the layout component reference. There's also another interesting feature that if I open 8.1.2 and from Tools menu, I go to the Layout Component Cache, we can see that our current report is using objects from 8.1.1. And if I select it, I can also see the name of the component being used. This way, if we are using components from multiple reports, we can see the whole list. Hence, we have successfully used Layout Component Reference, which saves us the future maintenance and allows us to make change at one place which will reflect at all the references. Thank you. 8.2 Creating Report Templates. In this video, we are going to go one step further. In addition to using layout component reference, we will see how we can create report template to bring a standard user interface across all the reports. For that, we will use our report 8.1.2 sample report that we did in the last video. We know that it is already using the layout component reference for the header table. We will save this report as a template. For that, from File menu, choose Convert to Template, and now save it as My Report Template. Basically, when we choose any report to be saved as report template, it loses any connection to any package or data source connection, because the report template is supposed to be a UI and formatting and styling wrapper which is independent of any package or data connection. Now, in this My Report template, we can do several changes. For example, from Page Explorer, if we go in Classes and then we scroll down, we select List Column Title cell and change its font to our required font that we would like to be applied throughout. So we choose that as Impact font. Let us also change the background color to our standard background color. Let's go on the report page and drag a new list object. Let us also create a new prompt page and make some standard changes. For example, we don't want next and back buttons, and we can change the background color and fonts for the buttons as well. If we want, we can add some JavaScript or some HTML items onto the template as well, because we would like to use them in all the reports. Now let us save this My Report template and see how it can be used when we build a new report. So let's click on the New button from the toolbox. You can actually ask your Cognos administrator to add the report template that you have just created to be added to this list. So every time you choose to create a new report, you will see My Report template as one of the options here. For now, we will choose the option of Existing item and scroll down and choose My Report template. As you can see, this report template has different icon, and when you choose to open it, it actually applies that report template to the new report that we are creating. Let us drag certain customer columns onto the list. We can see that the column titles have the background and font that we have chosen. There's also the prompt page, and it has finish and cancel buttons with the same font that we have chosen for the report template. If I save this report as 8.2 sample report based on template and go back to the public folders, we can see that our report 8.2 is now saved and it is using the report template. So basically it has saved us redoing any font, background color, HTML or prompt button changes. And it's a standard template that can be used every time we create a new report. Please note that it is different from layout component reference, where we can make changes at one place and it will automatically be applied everywhere else. That will not happen with report template. Hence, any change we want to make to report template should be done beforehand. The idea behind this is mainly to save the time in making the formatting and styling changes that we would like to apply to all the reports. Thank you. 8.3 Horizontal pagination and PDF page sizing. I've got this report on my screen called 8.3. It's a report that shows various customer columns like customer number, name, and address columns. When I run this report in PDF, I can see that because the number of columns are high, not all the columns can be fitted into one page. So what Cognos does is shows me certain columns on page 1, and then I can see the remaining columns like city, state, postal codes, etc. on the next page. However, this doesn't really mean anything, because if I look at second page, I cannot relate it to any customer number or name. What we would like to do is actually have all the columns in one page. So let us see what we need to do to fix this problem. Basically, there is a very simple property that we need to change for any list or crosstab to stop splitting it over multiple pages. So Click on the three dots to select this list report, and from Properties, open Pagination. We can see that the option of Allow Horizontal Pagination is selected by default. We need to untick this and save the report. And now, if we run this report in PDF, we can see that PDF is showing all the columns onto one page. This way, it has solved our problem of list splitting over multiple pages. However, we need to do another thing. At the moment, if we look at the whole page, we can see that the fonts have reduced quite a lot because the page size is set to A4 and the orientation is set to portrait. Let's see what we can do about the PDF page sizing and orientation. So we go back to our report in Report Studio, and from File option, we click on PDF page setup. For orientation, choose landscape because our report is quite wide. And for the paper size, let us choose A3, which is a bigger page than A4. Click OK, and let's save this report and give it a run. And now our PDF is out. We can see that it looks much more pretty and easy to read because it is now set to landscape and it is fitting on page A3. So if users print this report, the fonts will be big enough to be readable. Please note that the PDF page setup from File is applied to all the pages. However, if you need to override the setting for any particular report page, you can select the page in Report Studio, and from Properties, you can change the PDF page setup and select to override the page setup. This way, you can have one report page behaving differently in PDF than all the remaining pages. Thank you. No data contents. It often happens that our list or crosstab report cannot show any data, either because there is no data in database or there is no data that matches our selection criteria. In such cases, instead of showing a blank page or blank list, we would like to display a no content message. Let us see how we can achieve that. I have this report that shows customer records. This list report has a filter on customer number, which is driven by the type in prompt. If I run this report and type customer number as 111 and hit finish, I see an empty list because there is no customer with customer number 111. In such case, I would like to actually display a message. To achieve that, let's go back to Report Studio and open the report page and click on the three dots to select the whole list. And from Properties, for the No Data Contents, select Yes. And you can see that it creates a new tab for us in the list where we can drop a text item and type a message that we would like to display. So we'll display a message as no customer for selected criteria. Let's save this report and give it a run. If I again try for customer number 111 and hit finish, instead of getting an empty list, I am now seeing a message as no customer for selected criteria. Instead of this message, we can also show an image or another list report or another data container if we like. Thank you. 8.5 Adding comments to reports. It is a very fundamental and core best practice to put comments in your code, and that also applies to your Cognos Report Studio reports. It will be very useful for yourself and for other report developers if they can see comments appropriate to the complex logic or calculations put in your Report Studio report. Unfortunately, there is no documented way in the Cognos help documents of how comments can be put. So different developers use a different way of putting comments in Report Studio, very commonly having a text item describing what the calculation is or what the logic is and then hiding the text item. Or a lot of developers copy the report onto clipboard and then add XML style of comment before putting it into version controlling. However, after I wrote the Report Studio cookbook, one of the readers came back to me with a very interesting finding about putting code comments that I'm going to share with you all today. Basically, what you are seeing on screen is a report that shows customer data, and I would like to put a comment in customer number. So what we can do is simply double click on the data item and edit the expression and put comment, as you can see on the screen, between two hashes and between the C style or Java style commenting, which is /* and closing by */. My understanding is because these comments are put between two hashes, Cognos first thinks that it's a macro and then tries to evaluate it. And because Cognos is C++ and Java based tool, at the time of evaluating macro, it treats / and star as comment. Anyway, it serves our purpose, and anything we put between these special characters are treated as comments that allows us to put some very useful information in the data items. We can see that if I open Query Explorer and edit any filter, same thing applies. So we can put comments in same way even in the filters. Unfortunately, we cannot do that on the report pages. So if I would like to put any comment on the report page, I will have to still stick to the basic way of dragging a new text item, putting comment, and then from properties, change its property to visible equals no, so that it is not shown on the output. This way, there are various ways of putting comments. There's another way, which is a kind of advanced way of editing the XML specification and putting the comments in there, which is probably more useful when you do version controlling. In our next video, we will see how we can copy and paste reports or report objects and how we can version control them. Thank you. 8.6. Copy-paste and version controlling. In the digital world, copy-paste is probably the most common operation done by us every day. May it be some text within Word file, some numbers in Excel files, or the whole files themselves. We regularly want to copy-paste things from one place to another. Let us see how we can do copy-paste in Report Studio. So, first of all, we will see how to copy a part of report. It is very easy, just like any other application, you can do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. But the main feature is it actually allows you to copy reports or part of reports from one environment to another environment, like dev to UAT or sandbox to dev, if you have access to Report Studio in both the environments. So let us see how easily it can be done. I've got this report open that shows customers' data. It's a list report, and I would like to copy that to another Report Studio, which can be connected to another server or another environment. What I need to simply do is, first of all, go in the Query Explorer and right-click on the query and select to copy it. Next, open Report Studio from the another environment and then go in the Query Explorer and simply paste the query. Once that is done, we can go back to the report page of our original report and select the whole list by clicking on the three dots in corner, right-click, choose to copy, and go back to the destination Report Studio report page, right-click, and paste it. It is essential to copy the query first before copying the list or crosstab or any data container. If we would like to copy the whole report along with the package connections and everything, we can go back to the original Report Studio, and from Tools menu, we can choose to copy the report to clipboard. And now go to the destination, and from Tools menu, choose to open report from clipboard. Because the report specification holds information about the package, it will try to load package with same name at your destination environment. If your destination doesn't have package with that name, it will error and you will have to select a package. Otherwise, it will simply validate the report and your report will be available for saving. The last and interesting bit we will see is, after copying the report to clipboard, we can even paste it in a text editor. And when we do that, for example, if I paste it in Notepad, I can see that it is an XML file or XML specification that is specific to the Report Studio version that you are using. And this file can now be saved locally, or it can be checked into any version controlling tool like VSS. And whenever you need it, you can open this file and copy this onto clipboard and open the report back in Report Studio. This is very commonly used for version controlling individual reports and keeping an offline backup of your online contents in case anything happens to your Cognos server. I hope you enjoyed this video series and you got to learn many basics about how to use Report Studio to build simple to advanced reports.
and the most common practices in report development. Thank you.